Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the Bloomberg Daybreak Europe podcast, available every morning on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. It's Monday, the 23rd of December in London. I'm Caroline Hepker. Coming up today, Panama's leader rejects Trump's threat to reimpose US control over the Panama Canal. Meanwhile, Trump calls talk that he has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk a hoax as questions grow about the billionaire's outsized influence. Plus, the clock is ticking. France awaits a new government as Prime Minister Francois Bayrou's self-imposed deadline looms. Let's start with a roundup of our top stories. President-elect Donald Trump's trade threats and diplomatic efforts are causing turmoil globally. In the latest example, Trump is claiming the Panama Canal is charging the US, quote, exorbitant prices and rates of passage, and he is demanding lower fees or else. Here is Trump speaking earlier in Phoenix, Arizona.
The fees being charged by Panama are ridiculous, highly unfair, especially knowing the extraordinary generosity that has been bestowed to Panama, I say very foolishly, by the United States. This complete ripoff of our country will immediately stop.
Trump talking about the US demanding that the canal will be returned to the United States if Panama does not change. In a video statement, Panama's President José Raúl Mulino rebuffed Donald Trump's threat.
Every square meter of the Panama Canal and its surroundings belongs to Panama and will continue to be. The sovereignty and the independence of our country are non-negotiable.
Panama's President José Raúl Mulino speaking there via a translator. Writing on Truth Social, Trump hit back saying, quote, we'll see about that. President-elect Trump has also been hitting back at claims that he has ceded the presidency to billionaire advisor Elon Musk. Here's what he told the event in Phoenix.
No, he's not taking the presidency. I like having smart people. You know, they're on a new kick. Russia, Ukraine, all the different hoaxes. And the new one is, President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No. That's not happening.
Trump's decision to address Musk's power is testimony to the influence of the world's richest man. Trump appointed the Tesla CEO to head a cost-cutting and deregulation effort while the two men came together to try and tank a deal to temporarily fund the US government. After failing to get enough votes for an alternative, a slimmed-down version of the original funding bill was passed, preventing a US government shutdown before Christmas. Now to Europe. France's new Prime Minister is struggling to form a new cabinet that won't be toppled by another no-confidence vote in Parliament. The Socialist Party have responded to Francois Bayrou's attempts to more moderate members with a letter stating that he has failed to break away from the policies of his ousted predecessor, Michel Barnier. The new government's top priority will be crafting a 2025 budget, with Bayrou aiming to finalise that by mid-February. French media outlets, though, report a decision on the makeup of the cabinet will be reached today, but the President's office has not issued an official response. UK businesses say that they expect their activity will fall noticeably in the coming months. The findings place immediate pressure on Chancellor Rachel Reeves ahead of the new year. Bloomberg's Tiwa Adebayo has more.
A steep decline. That's what awaits the country's private sector activity in 2025, says the Confederation of British Industry. According to the group's latest growth indicator survey, all three major sectors are expecting volumes to fall in the first quarter, with manufacturers' expectations at their weakest since May 2020. Businesses say they plan to respond by cutting headcount sharply. Hiring tensions are at their weakest in over 4 years. The bleak outlook from UK employers shows the scale of the challenge facing Rachel Reeves as she seeks to turn around economic sentiment. It comes after the Chancellor's tax-raising October budget was widely criticised by the business community for jeopardising growth. In London, Tiwa Adebayo, Bloomberg Radio.
Now, a judge has ordered pre-trial detention for the man suspected of driving a car into a German Christmas market in the city of Magdeburg 2 days ago. The suspect, a 50-year-old doctor of Saudi Arabian origin, was taken into custody on Friday evening. Christian Pagel, the Interior Minister for the German state of Mecklenburg-Western Pomerania, where he originally lived, says that he'd previously been flagged to German authorities.
The suspect threatened to do something that would attract international attention. He referred in this context to the attack in Boston, the Boston Marathon in 2013. Subsequently, a warrant was issued to search the flat of the suspect. No evidence of any kind was found that would indicate actual preparations to commit such an act.
That was the German politician Christian Pagel speaking there via a translator. A 9-year-old child and 4 women were killed in the incident, which left more than 200 people injured. Authorities are investigating the suspect's background and motives, including warnings from Saudi Arabia about his potential danger. And those are some of our top stories for you this morning. Let's get to the markets this hour. So the MSCI Asia Pacific Index is up by 1.3%. You've got a rebound in Asian equities, even though we had quite a significant global sell-off last week. Stock futures also for the US are looking up by 0.8% for the Nasdaq futures. S&P 500 E-mini futures up by 0.5%. We're thinking about, of course, what's happening in Europe. The CAC has been lagging the broader European markets for most of this year, and in fact the worst performance since 2010. We're awaiting the formation of a French cabinet. In terms of Treasury yields, 4.52. We've also had out last week, of course, more inflation data, which did look quite muted, so that reignited Fed rate cut bets. So that was one thing to think about. The budget impasse in the US, though, does seem to have been resolved. The Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index is steady to slightly firmer, and you also have oil prices up slightly, gold trading at 2,625, and Bitcoin trading just above $95,000. This ahead of the UK GDP data this morning. Those are the markets this hour. In a moment, we are going to be talking a little bit about the new cabinet and whether that's going to be announced today. That's the promise. And, of course, Donald Trump's threats against Panama and the Panama Canal. There is a story that has caught my eye this morning. I wonder whether you've read it. Of course, we're coming to the end of the year, thinking about 2025. We've got a fantastic piece that's on the Bloomberg terminal about the 11 wildest trades of 2024. Of course, crypto is involved in that story. Donald Trump's win in November, Tobo charging the market $100,000 mark for Bitcoin, of course. Then there's also, though, what happened in terms of whether you tried to time the market. Certainly mom and pop investors, retail investors did. They kind of lost out, according to the piece that we've written. They also look at Argentina, the win of Javier Milei and how that helped Argentina's debt. Loads of other really interesting trades that have been the themes of 2024. You can have a look at that story that's on the Bloomberg terminal and on the front of our website this morning. There's also a fantastic piece about ETFs and the God Bless America ETF, which has been one of the best performers in 2024. Certainly it beat the S&P 500. One story to read about. Now, let's go to the story on Panama. Panama's president has rejected Donald Trump's threat to reimpose US control over the canal, saying that its shipping tolls are not inflated and that sovereignty over this key commercial waterway is not negotiable. Joining us now is Bloomberg's senior editor Bill Ferries to discuss. Bill, good morning. Thank you for your time. Trump appears concerned about China's involvement in managing trade through the canal. What has Panama's leader been saying about all of this?
Well, Panama's president has basically come out and said that, the canal is sovereign Panamanian territory. And the country and the Canal Authority have been committed to kind of ensuring a politically neutral stance over use of the canal ever since it was handed back to Panama about more than 4 decades ago. So it's open to all nations. The U.S. is really the biggest user of the canal. I think 70% of the traffic going through there now is from the U.S. or headed to the U.S. And it's true that the canal has looked at raising rates. They've had a huge water shortage of rainfall for really kind of years now, and that's depleted the reservoir that feeds the canals, and so they've had to portion out who gets through. There's been backloads at times trying to get through, but it's Panama's territory, and that's basically been unquestioned for almost half a century.
Yeah, but the real-world impact, what will that be? I mean, this looks, as you say, to be a sort of feud between Panama and Trump, and all of this happening pre-inauguration.
Well, it certainly shows the influence that Trump has on global affairs, including on countries, that we didn't really expect to be talking about this week, like Panama, for instance. I think it will be interesting to see. We'll have to at some point parse out, what Trump says versus what he does. I'm not sure what his game plan here is with Panama. It's more or less a U.S. ally. The U.S. is actually charged with protecting the canal if it falls into foreign hands. And there's not a huge trade issue going on between the U.S. and Panama. So I'm not sure what the end game here is, other than perhaps trying to get rates down. That's going to be something Panama has to deal with once Trump takes office on January 20th.
There was also a lot to be taken from the various speeches that Trump made over the weekend. I mean, he made also nominations, for example, for the lead of the Council of Economic Advisors, which is something we look at a lot. But there was a line about meeting Putin, that the president-elect suggested he'd be open to that meeting Putin.
Yeah, and that's something I think Vladimir Putin said last week at one of his news conferences, that he would be willing to meet with Trump to talk about Ukraine and other issues. And Trump has maintained that he's always been willing to sit down. I think he pitches that as something as a plus for him, that he's willing to talk to just about anybody. The big question will be, what kind of decision might they come to over Ukraine. The president-elect has continued to insist that the war should end very quickly. At one point, he even said it would end before he took office. And I think Ukraine, you've seen both sides in that conflict trying to nail down as much territory as they can for any advantage if negotiations or truce talks are around the corner. So we're still, I think, 30 days out from Donald Trump's presidency, but he's certainly already having a major impact on global events.
Yeah. Bill, thank you so much for being with me this morning and discussing that. Bloomberg senior editor, Bill Ferries. Now let's turn our attention then to the French Prime Minister Francois Bayrou, who is struggling to form a new cabinet that can actually survive a no-confidence vote in Parliament. We're expecting news on it today. Joining us now live from Paris is William Harbin. Good morning, William. We were expecting to hear about this on Sunday. Now it looks to be today at the earliest. What do we know about timings?
Well, this is kind of welcome to the Groundhog Day of French politics. The Prime Minister said last week that he wanted to name a new cabinet by Christmas. So that essentially meant this weekend, because today is a day of national mourning for the cyclone disaster in Mayotte. And many people in France would count the 24th of December as being Christmas. Last night we were all waiting for the grand announcement, and then nothing came. And they said that they would not be making the announcement last night.
Yeah. So then how does Bayrou avoid the same fate as Barnier? Who do we think that Bayrou is speaking to? Does he need the support of Le Pen and her party?
Well, he needs at least the sort of implicit support of more lawmakers than Barnier had. And Bayrou is perhaps better positioned to be able to do that, because he's the veteran centrist of French politics, and so he has always had relatively sort of amenable relations with both the sort of socialists and the centre right. So he was in a good position to get the numbers that would not necessarily back his government, but would at least agree to not immediately bring it down in a no confidence vote. But the problem is that he hasn't really pulled the rabbit out of the hat on this one, and the moderates that he needed on the left have said that they don't want to be part of the government, and they as of yet haven't seen anything that would make them not join a no confidence vote.
Very briefly, what happens to the budget? We've seen France's borrowing costs escalate, a sell-off in oats in recent months. What about, getting actually a budget for France sorted?
Well, I don't think investors are going to get any clarity before the end of the year on where France is going. Probably not until mid-January. For now, France is relying on emergency legislation that essentially just avoids a shutdown. And Bayrou has said that he would like to have a budget in place for 2025 by mid-February. What's in that budget is hard to guess at the moment. If he's going to be able to broaden the support he has, he will probably have to make more concessions, and that probably means a bigger deficit next year than Barnier had planned.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, your morning brief on the stories making news from London to Wall Street and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed every morning on Apple, Spotify and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning on London DAB Radio, the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm Stephen Carroll. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day, right here on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.